My name is Irith and I'm a user experience designer. I'm currently writing up a Masters in Interaction Design through QUT, and for the past 2 years I've been involved with HealthMap, which is an NHMRC funded intervention going to an RCT next month, hopefully. I'm actually not going to talk about the intervention or the technology. I'm going to talk about a particular design process that HealthMap found really useful as an early framework for product strategy. We all know what the healthcare system is like. It's institutional, academic, conservative, functional. It doesn't have a reputation for being very patient-friendly or the sort of place people feel comfortable. If we want to design products that will engage patients, this institutional context can seem like a barrier. But healthcare is also full of a lot of people who spend a lot of time with patients. So far, a lot of health IT projects have recognised the need to elicit requirements from stakeholders, but they often don't do it very successfully. I would suggest that this is because designers haven't been included in the process, and design tools and design thinking haven't been included either. Good design should give you what you would expect: an emotionally engaging, effective experience, but it should also be efficient, effective, and evidence-based. In the last 15 years, a school of design has emerged from the fields of ergonomics, human factors engineering, human-computer interaction, cognitive science, and a bunch of others to deliver a creature that can be called a user experience designer, a service designer, an experience designer, an interaction designer. These terms are pretty much interchangeable. HealthMap employed 2 user experience designers and collaborated with a participatory design researcher for the design input on the project. I'm no longer very closely involved because I'm writing up my Masters, but the product design has continued to be led by Alex Tam from the US. If you happen to be looking to hire a designer, make sure that they are fixated on this next question. What's the problem? Early on, this question is high level, but through the product iterations, this question is retained at a more and more micro detail level. Product strategy is about not getting lost in the detail, but being able to retain the original problem you are meant to be solving. For designers, there are 2 main aspects to exploring what is the problem. The first is who. Knowing to whom the problem applies is crucial for evidence-based design. If who is not researched and intimately understood, then understand that you are building a product based on assumptions. In health, actually in most things, but particularly in health, who can end up being more than one user group. The product we build can be seen as a solution for a variety of end users and meeting the needs of multiple stakeholders. In order to really know who, we can't avoid asking why. Why is this a problem for that particular person? Particularity is crucial to shaping a successful design. Accurate specificity is a key ingredient of effective design, especially in health. Designers have different tools for understanding the why of problems. They're always complex. Problems are always complex. The real skill in design is synthesizing a coherent response to all of this complexity. To understand the who and the why, designers have to be immersed in your world. They have to get to know your patients. They have to get to know you. They have to get to know the lived experiences of everyone potentially interacting with your product. They have to understand the landscape, the demands and the constraints. When this is done properly, designers start to develop an intuition about the problem and potential solutions. They develop empathy. All of this hard evidence is crucial, but when a designer is in the flow of designing, it is an intuitive, empathic when a designer is in the flow of designing, that is not a cognitive, rational mechanism. It's an intuitive, empathic, creative art. That is why the research phase is so important. Design is not engineering, it's a creative response, and it's vital that what drives that creativity is accurate and involves as few assumptions as is practicable. Design research is a lot of fun. It's quick, it generates insights, and it will take up as much space as you can spare. Synthesis has to come from somewhere. Often being confronted with this mountain of data is daunting. Where do you start? How do you prioritise? How do you balance institutional and program requirements with what you've discovered the patients want? One method is to build personas. Personas are really powerful design tools that are especially suitable for health projects. HealthMap conducted a persona building workshop at the end of a research phase in preparation for an 8-week design intensive. Our goal was to have some definition and scope in order to give direction to the design work. By defining the who and the why, you can get to the requirements pretty quickly. Personas for design were introduced by Alan Cooper, who was one of the fathers of Visual Basic, as a hypothetical archetype of an actual user, describing that person's goals, aptitudes, and interests. In this way, personas can facilitate expressing design aims and features that are defined by the end user's mental models and their behaviour. And by doing that, you avoid the problem of designers designing from their own preferences and their own assumptions. So taking themes and patterns around the behaviour and motivation of users helps us to make sense of priorities and values for design. We then weave user needs and behaviour together with stakeholder project goals and start to surface the features and objectives for the product. And we capture these in design principles. In HealthMap, this was an afternoon workshop with the team of clinical, social and design researchers. Everyone contributed. Different participants were familiar with different aspects of the research. The great thing about this participatory workshop approach is that everyone helps to craft the personas. Everyone contributes to decisions and they understand the rationale behind decisions. These decisions lay the foundation for scoping your product. I just need to ask a question. Because did I have a slide up that talked about qualitative and quantitative research? Okay, good, because I didn't register it here. For designers, this is a vital step. They get to air their assumptions and inferences, so the designers get to show their inner workings, the stuff that they've derived from the research. So remember, I talked about design as an intuitive process. It's important to iron out any misconceptions and to refine the designer's focus. Tested and critiqued by domain experts, it's vital that stakeholders have confidence in the designer's grasp of their domain. You guys have to feel confident that we understand your experience in what it is the problem you're trying to solve. For HealthMap, this workshop was the step that really allowed the stakeholders to see how much the designers got the problem and understood their patients. For the stakeholders to have the opportunity to shape the designer's understanding was an important confidence builder and did a lot to support team collaboration. During the workshop, the cloud of ideas that are set out in a framework that drafts the personas. Gaps can be identified and comparisons made, helping to refine the outcome into a solid representation of evidence and knowledge. Often stakeholders have good exposure to end users and they're a really valuable resource for designers. The way that the workshop is run is employing storytelling tools. We're shaping characters, we're colouring in characters. And that storytelling approach is powerful for harnessing participation and delving into domain expertise at an intuitive level. Participants, so this is, the doctors and the researchers, they're in creative, intuitive mode that surfaces really important insights, things that they would otherwise take for granted. Storytelling is an easy, fun process. User groups have very significant particularities, and allowing the domain experts to refine the understanding of those particularities refines the designer's empathy. It's a good tool for keeping your end users and their context right at the centre of design, because your original design guidelines will be derived directly from the personas, which are vessels for the research findings. And so we can be confident as the design develops and it goes through different iterations, you can be confident that it's been anchored in that original end user behaviour. Then personas are not a silver bullet. They're not always an appropriate tool to use. If the project stakeholders are not people who have direct contact with end users, then it's not going to work. If there's a small body of research data that's actually quite easy to wrangle using other approaches, it's best not to go into a sort of full-on storytelling powerful tool, because there are other ways of keeping the findings from that sort of more manageable amount of research present. And even sometimes if you have no stakeholders who have direct contact with end users, they can still be very exposed to the user research data. That can be helpful, but if that's not available to you, then personas are not the tool to use for this stage. You need to be asking your designer to come up with something else. And so that's the end of my presentation. Thank you. If you're interested in a conversation around design, there's a LinkedIn group which is about designing for health in Australia. And I'm also facilitate some events for UX Melbourne. So UX Melbourne are the local user experience design community. So they'd be a great bunch of people for anyone to plug into if you're interested in exploring this area more. Thank you.